The chill of the Alaskan wind was a constant companion. It cut through layers of wool and hide, a reminder of the unforgiving wilderness that surrounded the small, isolated settlement. For Elara, an Amish woman of 20, the wind was a familiar song, a counterpoint to the quiet rhythm of her life. She was a woman of sturdy hands and a steadfast heart, her days defined by the simple, hard work of their community, tending the small vegetable patches, milking the family's lone goat, and mending clothes by the light of an oil lamp. Their community, a small group of families who had ventured north for a life of ultimate isolation and purity, was nestled in a remote valley, far from the bustling gold rush towns. It was a place of vast, silent forests and towering, snow-dusted peaks, a world away from the familiar farmlands of Pennsylvania. The decision to move had been Elder Silas's, a man of rigid faith and iron will. He had promised a sanctuary, a place where they could live entirely separate from the worldly temptations of the modernizing nation. Elara's world was small but full. She had her parents, her younger brother, and the community she served. But her heart had found a quiet, secret connection with a man from the outside world. His name was Liam. He was a trapper, a man of the woods with a kind face and a quiet strength. He lived a solitary life, his only companions a team of huskies and the whispering pines. Their paths had crossed when he had been found half frozen on the community's land, a leg broken from a fall. Elara, with her natural gift for healing, had been the one to nurse him back to health. She had spent weeks by his side, tending his wounds and listening to his stories. He spoke of the vastness of Alaska, of the northern lights dancing in the sky, and of the distant world she had only heard about in hushed tones. He never pushed her, never tried to change her beliefs, but he simply shared his own world with her, a world of freedom and choice she had never known. Their conversations were like a warm fire in the long, cold nights, a comfort she never knew she craved. Their connection, however, was a forbidden one. A man of the world was not for an Amish woman. It was a line Elara knew she could not cross, yet she found herself drawn to him, to the easy way he laughed and the genuine kindness in his eyes. The trouble began with the arrival of a federal marshal, a grizzled, stern man named Marshal Blackwood, accompanied by a small, anxious court clerk. The marshal was investigating a series of thefts from a nearby mining camp. One of the items stolen was a rare and valuable compass, a gift from a prominent geologist to a mining boss. The compass had a unique engraving, a family crest that made it easily identifiable. The trail, Blackwood claimed, led to their valley. Elara's brother Jacob, a young man of 18, was a source of worry. He was headstrong and restless, always dreaming of the world beyond their valley. He had been found with the compass, hidden in his small leather satchel. When questioned by the marshal, Jacob insisted he had found it, but the marshal's glare was enough to betray his nervousness. Elara knew her brother was foolish, not malicious, but the evidence was against him. He was arrested and taken to the nearest courthouse, a makeshift structure in the booming, chaotic town of Sitka. The community was thrown into turmoil. Elder Silas declared it a test of their faith, a trial to be met with prayer and humility. Elara, however, was heartbroken. She knew her brother, for all his flaws, wasn't a thief. There was more to this story, a truth that was being lost in the rush to judgment. Liam, who had returned a few days earlier and was quietly making his way to the community, saw the marshal's men taking Jacob away. He learned the details from a nervous farmhand, and his blood ran cold. He knew the marshal. Blackwood was a man who did not seek justice so much as he sought a swift resolution, a way to close his cases and move on. Liam also knew the world of the prospectors and trappers, a world where valuable items were often used as bargaining chips or planted to frame others. He knew Jacob's gentle nature. He knew Elara's deep devotion to her family. Driven by a need to help, Liam approached Elara, offering his assistance. The community, led by Elder Silas, forbade it. "This is our burden to bear," Silas stated, his voice a low rumble. "We will not accept help from the outside world, a world of sin and lies." But Elara, for the first time in her life, defied her elder. She met Liam in the shadow of a large pine tree, the air crisp with the scent of pine needles and snow. "He is all I have," she said, her voice a plea. "I must save him. I believe you can help." Liam simply nodded, a look of grim determination on his face. He knew what he had to do. The court hearing was scheduled for the end of the week. There wasn't much time. Meanwhile, in Sitka, Jakob was being held in a small, damp cell. He was terrified. He had indeed found the compass, not stolen it. He had been a few miles from their settlement near a creek and had seen a man drop it. The man, a gruff prospector, had simply cursed and walked away, not even bothering to look for it. Jakob, captivated by the intricate engraving, had picked it up. He hadn't known its value. He hadn't known what he was getting into. The court hearing began in a small, crowded room. Judge Thorne, a weary man with kind eyes, presided. The prosecutor, a sharp-tongued man named Mr. Finch, laid out the case. He painted Jakob as a conniving thief, a member of a secretive community that harbored resentment towards outsiders. Elara, clad in her simple black dress and white cap, sat in the front row, her hands clasped tightly in her lap. The marshal recounted his story, detailing how he had found the compass on Jakob. The evidence was damning. As the judge prepared to pass sentence, Liam, a commanding presence, entered the courtroom. He asked to be heard and presented new evidence, a gold nugget with the same distinctive marks as the stolen compass. He testified that Jakob was a witness, not a thief. The prosecutor scoffed, calling Liam a liar, but Liam stood firm. "My word is my bond, and it's backed by evidence," he said, pouring the genuine gold nugget onto the table. When the prosecutor insisted the evidence wasn't enough, Elara, her heart pounding, stood up. "This trial is not about a compass," she said, her voice soft but clear. "It is a test of our faith." The judge acknowledged her devotion but stated the law was not on her side. Desperate, Elara offered a way to show her family's purity. "I offer to stand naked before the court," she said, her voice trembling. "It is our way of showing that we are as open and honest as the day we were born." The court was shocked. The judge sadly shook his head, refusing the offer as a violation of her dignity. But as Elara slumped in despair, Marshal Blackwood spoke up. "The lady is correct, Your Honor," he said. "She is willing to sacrifice her dignity for her brother. That is not the act of a family of thieves." The judge, taking into account Liam's new evidence and the marshal's testimony, suspended his judgment and released Jakob until a full investigation could be conducted. A collective sigh of relief filled the courtroom. Jakob was free. Elara, her heart filled with relief, looked at Liam. He had saved her brother, and in doing so, had saved her. In the quiet aftermath of the trial, tension hung over Elara's community. Elder Silas viewed Liam's help as a dangerous breach of their traditions. He placed Elara and her family on a period of reflection, forbidding her from seeing Liam. For Elara, the separation was a heavy blow. She had come to rely on Liam's quiet strength and the unspoken understanding between them. Their last meeting was a silent goodbye, a hurried exchange of glances in the shadow of the barn. "Be safe," Liam whispered. Then he was gone. Liam, however, didn't give up. He knew the real thief was still out there, and he spent his days tracking him. He followed a trail of rumors to a remote camp and found the man he suspected, a prospector named Jedediah. Back at the settlement, Elara's days were a hollow routine. She felt a profound loneliness, a new and painful emotion. Her mother, seeing her sadness, urged her to pray. Elara did, but her prayers were different now, not for strength to resist temptation, but for the courage to face an uncertain future. One evening, a fierce blizzard rolled in. A frantic knock at the elder's door revealed a younger man who had found Liam's sleigh overturned and buried in the snow. Elder Silas initially refused to help, but the other men of the community, guided by the unwritten rules of the wilderness, insisted on a rescue. "Our faith teaches us to help those in need," one of them said. Ignoring the protests of her parents, Elara grabbed her coat. She was a healer, and she knew Liam would need her. Her heart was no longer bound by the rules of her community, but by the man who had saved her brother. The search party found Liam half buried in a drift, his leg badly broken and his body suffering from hypothermia. They carried him back to the settlement, where Elara became his constant nurse in a small, isolated cabin. In his fever, Liam revealed the truth. He had found Jedediah's camp, and under the floorboards of his tent, a hidden satchel of stolen goods, including the compass. He had risked his life to find the proof that would clear Jacob for good. As the blizzard raged, Liam's fever broke. He woke to find Elara watching him. "You did this for us," she said, her voice filled with tears. "For you," he corrected, his voice a hoarse whisper. "For you." Elara's mother, witnessing the truth of their bond, understood that some connections were not of this world, but of the heart. As winter gave way to spring, Liam, with Elara's devoted care, was on the mend. His fever was gone, and his broken leg was slowly healing. The community, seeing Elara's selfless dedication, had softened their stance. Even Elder Silas, though still distant, looked at Liam with a new respect. Meanwhile, the news of Jedediah's capture spread. Marshal Blackwood had tracked him down, and with the evidence Liam had found, Jacob was fully exonerated. He was a free man, and the community rejoiced. But for Elara, the joy was bittersweet. Her world had changed forever. She had found a love she could not deny, and she knew she couldn't go back to the small, isolated life she had known. One afternoon, sitting beside Liam on the cabin porch, Elara took a deep breath. "Liam," she began, her voice a little shaky, I cannot go back. My heart is with you. I must follow my own path." Liam's face lit up with a genuine smile. "Elara," he said, his voice thick with emotion, "I would be honored to walk that path with you." The two sat together, a man of the world and a woman of faith, their hands clasped. Their union was a bridge between two worlds. Elara knew she had to speak with Elder Silas one last time. She found him in his study and told him her choice. "You are forsaking your faith," he said. "No," Elara replied, her voice unwavering. "I am not turning my back on God. I am turning my back on a life that is too small for the love He has given me. He gave me the strength to help a man in need. Is that not a sign?" Silas was silent for a long moment. He looked at the new strength in her eyes and knew he could not stop her. "Go," he said finally, his voice a weary sigh. "And may God's grace be with you." Elara left the next morning, her hand in Liam's. She did not look back. Her new life was waiting for her, a life of adventure and love. The trial had not just been about a compass or about her brother. It had been about Elara and about finding the courage to follow her heart, a heart that had found its true home in the vast, wild beauty of Alaska. She had been tested, and in the end she had not just survived. She had truly begun to live. Thank you for watching. If you were moved by Elara's story of love, courage, and finding her own path, please consider subscribing. Your support helps me create more tales of human strength and emotion.